Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse. Marvel, standing as one of the biggest comic book franchises of all time, of course has its fair share of superhero teams. But there is always a first hero and a first team for these franchises. Marvel's first ever team, or I should say, Marvel's first family, is the Fantastic Four. Throughout the years, we have had a few live-action adaptations of the team, none of which being a part of the MCU, however, and none of them being regarded as great iterations of the team, their characters, or overall, just being good films by themselves, especially that 2015 one. So it's always been a pretty big question when it came to the MCU, when we would be getting Marvel's first family in the main cinematic universe. But that time is now. Finally, as Fantastic Four First Steps has come out. And as the reviews keep coming in, so far it is looking pretty good for the first family and their first steps, especially if you are a Fantastic Four comic book fan. So as a huge Fantastic Four fan myself, I decided to go and see the movie and form my own opinion on it, which I highly suggest everyone else does as well. Have a good time at the movies and see what you think about it. So just to start off with a very short answer to this video's title, is Fantastic Four First Steps the best adaptation of Marvel's first family? And in short, yes, in my opinion, I believe that it is. And I don't think it is close. I also think that this movie is fantastic. Let me explain a bit further and in more detail, and tell you what I liked and may have not liked about this film. And of course, beware as this video will contain spoilers. Now yes, there will definitely be some people who do not like this film, it is bound to happen. But I do think if you have love for this superhero team, you will appreciate this movie a lot. And even if you don't know much about them, it does a very good job at introducing them to the world very quickly. It also does skip over their origins and how they got their powers, kind of like how Superman did it, but we've seen them so many times it kind of just makes sense to jump right in, at least in my opinion. Of course, I did mention further diving in to what I did and did not like about this movie, and I want to just get any sort of negative criticism I have out of the way. The main thing this movie suffers from, I think, is the runtime, which kind of seems to be a running thing these days. I think some things are a bit fast-paced in the movie, and there are definitely some things that were cut from it. And I also wish that we got to see a couple of characters just a bit more. So if the movie was just a tad bit longer, I think it would have been absolutely perfect. There are also a few quick scenes where the green screen is a bit wonky, but that is more of a nitpick, and that does not affect the rating of the movie for me. But I just thought that I would mention it because it was noticeable. And believe it or not, those are my only issues, and one of them is more of a critique than the other. So let's move on to everything else. Just to start off, going along with the video's title once more, in my opinion, this is our most accurate depiction of the Fantastic Four that we have ever seen in live action. This movie displays the team so well. Their dynamic is so perfectly crafted, almost like a comic book. And each member of the team and their portrayals are extremely faithful to the source material. that even extends into the rest of the movie, such as the large amount of Easter eggs reminding us of all of the other characters surrounding the Fantastic Four, such as Mole Man, Red Ghost, the Mad Thinker, and even Dragon Man. But more importantly, it also extends to the antagonist of the movie, Galactus, and his herald, Shalabal, the Silver Surfer in this universe. And speaking of Shalabal, I really enjoyed her character in this. Seeing her be our Silver Surfer for this film not only makes perfect sense, but it has finally been adapted and at the perfect time. Being that this is not the main universe in the MCU, we get another iteration of Silver Surfer. I do hope sometime down the line we can see both Norrin Radd and Shalabal together, especially knowing that they are a couple in the comics. I also really enjoyed exploring her character, seeing her loyalty for Galactus slowly diminish throughout the movie as she comes to realize what she has done, and then to briefly explore her own backstory, see her home planet, and just how and why she became the Herald for Galactus. Not only did she bring beautiful cinematic shots, but she also brought in some great action sequences, and her portrayal was incredible. And that brings us into Galactus himself. And wow, am I impressed with him. They casted him perfectly as well. Hearing him speak for the first time immediately just cemented his presence on screen that he carried throughout the movie with his power level and his size. And for once in live action, it's actually the real Galactus and not a freaking cloud. He also brought some serious feelings of high stakes in this movie, and I guarantee he will be back sometime down the line, as one of the best aspects about his character in this movie is that they cannot outright defeat him here, they have to just delay him. I also appreciated the characterization of his hunger. They don't portray it as him just eating planets because he is a big evil monster in space. They portray it the way it is typically done. He does it because he has to. He is eternally hungry and needs to eat planets in order to survive. It's ultimately kind of like a curse, which is what ended up turning him into the villain that he is. And that's not even his main motive in this movie, which is the crazy part. He's actually after Sue and Reed's son, Franklin Richards, because of his cosmic power. He wants him to take over that hunger that has been bothering Galactus for all this time, which I thought was a very cool addition to the story, and having them already introduce Franklin into the MCU is awesome. It seems like we will be going down the route where he is one of the most powerful characters in the entire universe. I mean, he held a universe in his hand when he was a kid in the comics, and I was honestly surprised with just how important he really was to the story, especially knowing he's literally a newborn. Of course, we cannot talk about the villains and Franklin without talking about the rest of Marvel's first family. Now, when they first announced the cast for the team, I will be completely honest, I was definitely a bit skeptical and worried. Specifically with Human Torch and Mr. Fantastic's casting. Don't get me wrong, I have always thought Joseph Quinn and Pedro Pascal were great actors, but I just was not sure how they would fit as the respective characters, if that makes sense. Anyways, I will admit, these two both in their own rights proved me wrong. and shut all of that worry down. Reed is finally portrayed as a family man who is not just one-dimensional as one of the most intelligent characters in the franchise, and that's it. He's also portrayed as someone who deeply cares for those around him and is always trying his best to find the best solution for every single problem that comes up. I actually was rereading Hickman's Fantastic Four before going to see the movie, and after watching it, I can confidently say that Pedro was literally just oozing Reed Richards' energy. And of course, with his powers being the whole stretchy bit, I was also concerned with how that would look. But again, I was very surprised. It actually looked extremely good and did not look wonky at all. And speaking of surprises, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm absolutely blew my mind. I was so shocked, and he proved my doubt to be wrong, as I said before. This movie and Joseph's performance as Johnny portray the character perfectly. It's almost like you're watching him being ripped from a comic book. Of course, knowing the character of Johnny Storm, he is the most comedic and charismatic member of the team and the family. But that does not take away from his importance, and more importantly, his intelligence and his other skills. They finally show us that Johnny himself is also somewhat of a genius, translating an entire alien language all by himself. They also did a great job showing that he is a very selfless man. He was willing to sacrifice himself 2 times in the movie to save his nephew. A big reminder to the comics, and maybe they're preparing us for an Annihilus story that's probably an entire decade away, but I can also say that I am very eager to see Johnny interact with Spider-Man. That is a great friendship from the comics that I would like to see adapted, especially after seeing this movie. And that brings us to Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, who has always been my favorite member of the team. He is one of the characters in this movie that I do wish we just got a bit more of, even though they also portrayed him perfectly. And casting Eban was such a good choice, and an accurate casting. A big part of Ben is that he is a gentle giant. He is exactly that in this movie. One of the main caretakers for Franklin. A great uncle, a great best friend of Reed's, and he just has a great dynamic with everyone on screen. He also looked incredible. And finally, a perfect 1-to-1 scale of his comic book counterpart. Another very big part of Ben's character is his heritage and culture. Now, it may have not been a massive part of the movie at all, but they still cared enough to display it and show it, which I thought was very meaningful. Especially seeing that Jack Kirby based a lot of this character off of himself. I do hope we get to see more of Ben's private life and culture, and his own relationship with Alicia continue to build throughout his next appearances. Now, there is always a standout for me, and in this, it is Vanessa Kirby as Susan Storm. Absolutely stunning performance. Perhaps one of the best performances in the entire MCU. Her presence on screen, standing as the glue to hold everything together, whether it's the family itself or the entire world. She also does anything for her child as any mother would, and she is so powerful. And I am so glad that they did her power set correctly for once. She doesn't just turn invisible, and she doesn't pass out and get nosebleeds every single time she uses her powers. She's actually set in stone as the most powerful member of the 4. And that is how it should be. There are so many aspects about this movie that I love, and every character just solidified that even more. Not only were they great, but the entire feel of this film was as well. It was very family oriented, which is a perfect tone for the Fantastic Four, of course. I also really liked how this movie was set in the 1960s, sort of giving off those retro vibes. I think it really fit well with the first family's first ever appearance in the MCU so late down the line. And speaking of the setting of the movie, this movie took place on Earth 828, which in itself is so meaningful. This is a direct nod and it honors Jack Kirby, as that is his birthday. This movie also had a little quote from him during the credits that meant a lot to see, and that was, "If you look at my characters, you will find me." No matter what kind of character you create or assume, a little of yourself must remain there. I really loved that addition, as these characters are his, based off of him, and they are all so relatable in so many ways. Everyone will be able to relate to at least one of these characters in the family, and that is so important when making a superhero. Now, this movie also did have 2 post-credit scenes, one of which being the second, or the end credits, was another beautiful nod to Jack Kirby. The second is a big tease for the future, as we get a very small glimpse at Dr. Doom, who seemingly is going to take Franklin, likely for his powers. Now, don't get me wrong, Dr. Doom is my all-time favorite Marvel character, and I definitely get the hype behind Doomsday in Secret Wars, and I also do not rate movies based off of post-credit scenes, but if I am being honest, this kind of worries me, because I loved this movie and I love this team, and kind of loved how they were off in their own universe. I'm just worried when they merge with everything else, and I just am not a fan of RDJ playing Dr. Doom, and I never was. And seeing how they are apparently filming Doomsday without a finished script is just crazy to me. I just don't want these characters to be watered down after this movie, if that makes sense. I definitely knew we would be getting a post-credit scene like this, as Doom was also hinted at a little bit in the movie earlier, but I am hopeful for the future though, and I don't want to sound negative about that at all. So let's just move on. Anyways though, there has been a real theme with superhero movies this summer, and them all having special messages with them. Thunderbolts was a mental health movie. Superman taught people to be better and live with hope. And Fantastic Four itself has a message of family and its importance, and just how much it is worth fighting for. Not only did this movie have a great message, it also had some of the best visuals that I have ever seen in the MCU. Especially all of these space scenes with the team, Silver Surfer, and Galactus. It was genuinely beautiful to watch, especially that black hole scene. The cast also had such good chemistry as well, and it made that family aesthetic feel even more strong. There was a great balance between humor and heart. Each character was done so well, as I mentioned before. You could go through the movie and pick any interaction between the family, and it would tell you a whole story about them and their relationship. It doesn't just go over these aspects either, it really delves into each and every one of them. And you can notice how each member of the team handles different situations. Johnny, being the charismatic member, goes with that hotspot approach, while Ben stands with a strong balance between enthusiasm and kindness. Reed, serving as the smartest man alive, uses extreme consideration, and Sue, the mother and the family's glue, uses love. A true family dynamic. Pedro is Reed, Joseph is Johnny, Eban is Ben, and Vanessa is Sue. And of course, Herbie is great too. There was comedy and it was actually funny. Nothing cheesy, and it also added to the dynamics between the characters, especially between Johnny and Ben. The music for this movie was also incredible, and I can say for certain that theme song will be put on repeat for sure. But anyways, I believe that is all I have to say in depth about the movie and what I did and did not like. Overall, Fantastic Four: First Steps was an incredible watch. Some could say it was a fantastic watch. Action-packed, even emotional at times. Absolutely stunning cinematography and shots. It had its comedic moments, perfect character iterations, high stakes, a good antagonist, a great cast, a beautiful soundtrack, amazing dynamics, and a great introduction to Marvel's first family. For their first steps in these characters, it is genuinely fantastic for everyone. My all-time favorite Fantastic Four movie. This movie stands as an equivalent to what the Batman did for that character and what Superman did as well, at least in my opinion. So accurate to their characters, and that is so heartwarming to see. The film had its issues, as every movie does, but not many really, and I absolutely loved it. And I am excited to see more of the family. There's a part of me that wants them to just stay in their own little universe and form a trilogy there. I am torn between an 8 or a 9 out of 10, but I am definitely leaning towards the 9. If you have not seen the movie yet, I urge you to go and experience it. I will be going to rewatch it, that is for sure. But if you have seen the movie, make sure to leave your thoughts on it down below. Anyways though, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.